Introduction: The Unfair Gift. My name is Kendra, and I'm 27 years old. The day my parents called me into the living room, I already knew something was off. They had that careful tone, the one they used when they'd already decided my future and were just about to inform me. My sister Melissa sat beside them on the couch, calm and polished as always, scrolling on her phone like none of this concerned her. I stood there, arms crossed, trying to prepare myself for whatever comparison was about to come next. They didn't waste time. My dad cleared his throat and said they had decided to help both of their daughters get a proper start in life. My mom smiled tightly like this was supposed to be generous. Then she announced it. Melissa was getting a brand new apartment in the city downtown modern building. Elevator, gym, security, the works. My sister finally looked up and smiled, already picturing herself there. Then my mom turned to me. They were giving me a house. For half a second, hope flickered. A house sounded big, permanent, like maybe, just maybe, this parent's decision and sister's apartment time things were equal. Then they showed me the address and the photos. The hope died instantly. It was old, dilapidated, cracked walls, broken windows, a sagging roof, and weeds taller than me choking the front yard. It looked abandoned, like even the city had given up on it. My mom rushed to explain that it was full of potential and that I was the practical one. So this suited me better. Melissa, she said, needed something safe and ready. That was the moment the words burned themselves into my memory. The same words later splashed across my life like a warning sign. My parents gave me an old, dilapidated house and my sister a brand new apartment. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream that this wasn't fair, that I worked just as hard, that I'd never asked for less. But years of being the reasonable daughter kicked in. I nodded. I thanked them. I swallowed it. They signed the papers quickly. The house was mine, they said. No mortgage, no rent, just mine. Melissa's apartment, on the other hand, the old dilapidated house revealed, was fully paid for by them. Furnished, decorated. My mom even picked out the curtains. I moved into the house a week later. The first night, rain leaked through the ceiling into a bucket I'd placed in the living room. The heater didn't work. The floors creaked like they were complaining about my existence. But I stood there in the dark, surrounded by dust and silence, and told myself this was still something, a starting point. I worked 2 jobs. During the day, I was at my office saving every spare dollar. At night and on weekends, I learned how to fix things. I watched tutorials, borrowed tools, scraped my knuckles raw. I repaired the roof one section at a time. I patched walls. I cleaned out years of trash from the backyard. Slowly, painfully, the house began to change. Months passed, then a year. I turned that wreck into a home. Not flashy, but solid, warm, safe, the kind of place that felt earned. I struggling, alone, and rebuilding. Everything planted a small garden out back. I refinished the floors myself. I even added a tiny sunroom where the broken porch used to be. That's when my parents asked to visit. My mom walked through the front door and froze. Her eyes scanned the space, the clean walls, the sunlight pouring through new windows. Her lips parted, not in pride, but in calculation. My dad stayed quiet, his jaw tight. Melissa wasn't there, but she didn't need to be. I could already hear her voice in my head. My mom finally spoke, and her words landed like a slap. When Mom saw what I had built, she said, "We're taking this house back. It now belongs to your sister. You have 48 hours to move out." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. "It didn't come," she went on, explaining how unfair it was that Melissa's apartment was too small compared to this, how family assets needed to be rebalanced. She said it like it was logical, like it was obvious. I reminded her the house was legally mine. She waved that off, saying paperwork could be handled. My dad avoided my eyes. That hurt more than her words. 2 days later, Melissa showed up. She arrived with boxes, a rental truck parked crookedly out front, confidence dripping from every step. She was already talking about where her couch, parents' visit, and shocking demand would go, how she'd repaint the bedroom. Then she walked inside fully and stopped. Her face drained of color completely. The smile vanished. Her eyes darted from the walls to the floors to the windows like she was seeing something she didn't expect at all. That moment echoed another line that would later define everything. When my sister arrived with her boxes, her face turned pale at the scene she saw, because what she saw wasn't just a nice house. It was something she couldn't touch, something she couldn't claim, Something tied not just to walls and paint, but to ground beneath it. And none of them yet understood the truth about that land, or why giving me this old, dilapidated house was the one mistake they'd never be able to undo. And that's where everything truly began. Melissa stood there, frozen, boxes half unloaded, her confidence evaporating as she took in every corner of the house. My mom mistook her silence for awe and smiled proudly, already imagining this place as Melissa's reward. My dad cleared his "you have 48 hours to move out" throat and told me again that I had 48 hours, like repeating it would somehow make it legal or fair. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just looked at Melissa, who finally turned to me and asked, confused why I was smiling, because in that moment, I realized something none of them had thought to check. They'd been so focused on the house itself that they'd ignored the most important part, the land beneath it. When my parents handed me the papers a year earlier, I actually read them. Every page, every clause. The house had been written off as worthless, a liability they were happy to dump on me. But the land had never been transferred back to them. It was zoned differently from the surrounding properties grandfathered into a commercial residential overlap from decades ago. While they were busy furnishing Melissa's apartment, I was busy fixing the house and quietly consulting a lawyer. Not to fight my parents, but to understand exactly what I owned. And what I owned wasn't just a renovated home. I owned a piece of land sister arrives with boxes that a development company had been circling for years. That was why, 3 months earlier, I'd signed a conditional agreement. The developer didn't care about the house. They wanted the land, the location, the access, the zoning. The deal was simple. Once renovations met safety code, the contract would finalize. That day had come last week. The money was already in escrow. So, when my mom said again, "We're taking this house back," I calmly asked her how she planned to do that. She snapped that they were my parents, that they'd given it to me. That family doesn't need permission. That's when I pulled out the folder. Deed zoning certificate contract. I placed them gently on the kitchen counter. I'd installed with my own hands. Silence fell heavy and thick. The truth about the land. My dad picked up the papers first. His hands shook as he read. My mom leaned over his shoulder, her face tightening with every line. Melissa stepped closer, panic replacing entitlement as she realized this wasn't just about rooms and paint colors anymore. I told them the truth slowly, clearly, so there could be no misunderstanding. The house was legally mine, the land was legally mine, and in less than 2 weeks, I wouldn't own either because I was selling. Not to Melissa, not back to my parents, but to people who actually understood its value. My mom's voice cracked. She asked how much. I told her the number. Her knees nearly gave out. It was more than the cost of Melissa's apartment, more than they'd ever planned to spend on me, more than they could match. Melissa started crying, saying it wasn't fair, that she'd already told her friends she was moving in, that this was supposed to be hers. I reminded her gently that it never was. That's when legal reality and family shock. The line echoed again in my mind, bitter and sharp. My parents gave me an old, dilapidated house and my sister a brand new apartment. Didn't know who owned the land. They'd seen scraps and given me scraps. Never realizing they'd handed me the foundation. They tried everything. Guilt, anger, promises. My mom offered to switch to give me the apartment instead, as if that could undo a year of dismissal. My dad said we could work something out, finally meeting my eyes. But it was too late. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. 2 weeks later, the developer people arrived. Melissa never moved in. The boxes went back on the truck. My parents stopped calling. The sale finalized quietly. I watched the house one last time. The place I'd final revenge and life lesson rebuilt from nothing and felt pride instead of loss. That house had never been my punishment. It had been my test. With the money, I bought my own place on my terms. No comparisons, no favoritism, just peace. Months later, I heard Melissa's apartment was sold. My parents needed the money. Funny how things balance out. I'm telling you this because stories like mine don't start with revenge. They start with being underestimated. If you've ever been given less, expected to accept scraps, or told to be grateful for unfairness, remember this. Sometimes the thing they look down on holds more power than they can imagine.